Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Less Stress, More Peace and Happiness Summit. We are really happy to have you join us, and we have so many great speakers sharing so many different tips and techniques to help you create calm and focus, reduce that stress and overwhelm, and really get to a place where you can, be in a peaceful state of being. So today, I'm very excited to say that we have with us Eric Antonette. And I'm going to tell you a little bit about Eric. Eric managed to retire at the age of 42 from a 20-year newspaper career when a greater calling took over. He delved into meditation and yoga, and he's been a yoga teacher for the last 14 years. Eric is also a master Reiki practitioner and teacher, and he studied in India for a year and a half to become a regression therapist. Eric is now an anger management specialist who's trained to deal with court-mandated cases. He's passionate about using his knowledge to teach people how to gain insight into their own personal anger triggers, become aware of the energy of anger, and then use that energy positively to live a more balanced and fulfilled life. Eric's a member of the Eden Sanctuary Community for Couples, where his desire to build a sacred relationship has grown and been nourished. He's passionate about helping couples release old negative patterns of behavior that keep them stuck in the past and build new relationships based on love, sacredness, and connection. So please welcome with me, Eric Antonette. How are you, Eric?
You're doing great. Thank you so much for having me, Janine. It's a pleasure to be here.
I am so interested for this topic, and I just want to share with everybody, when I first started putting together the summit, and I had in my mind a list of ideas of subtopics, and dealing with anger wasn't immediately on that list. But when I talked to you, it made perfect sense because the energy of anger is very stressful. And so I was really happy that we connected and you agreed to do the summit. I think it's going to bring a lot of great value for the listeners. So if you don't mind, I would like to start out. I always think it's interesting. I'd like to start out if you would share just a little bit of your story and how you got to do the work that you're doing. I always think that's fascinating. I'm going to give you the stage here.
Okay. Thank you so much, Janine. Thank you so much. So, from a very young age, I had parents who were deep in their own anger. And when I saw that as a child, it really didn't make sense to me. And in my head, I was thinking there has to really be a better way to manage a relationship, and to understand each other, to understand each other's needs. And so that sat with me for quite some time, and then life took over. And as you read in my bio, I got into business and into my own personal relationships where I got to repeat the pattern of my parents, and my own anger came up, and my own relationship issues came up, and it's like, okay, well, there's kind of an awakening happening here where all the stuff that I hated about how my parents were being with each other was actually also in me. And so there was a desire from like a very young age for me to kind of understand the dynamics of relationships and emotions and how they play a factor in how we relate with each other. And so that led me to, like you said in my bio, to yoga, to Reiki, to regression, and then finally to being an anger management specialist.
That is so awesome. I think, sometimes when we grow up in these situations, a lot of times people just, like you said, even at the beginning, you kind of just repeat those patterns unconsciously. And so it takes conscious effort to become aware of that and to create change and decide to do something different. And so I think that's really interesting that you were able to do that. And not only that, but to now use what you've learned to help other people. So I'm really excited to hear more about your topic.
Yes. So we don't really have good teachers. Like I did not have a good teacher as parents, right? To learn how to deal with anger. And there's really two normal ways that we've been taught. And the first way is that anger is a bad thing and you should push it down and not feel it and just try to cover it up with positivity or some other means. Just get on with your life type of thing. And the second way, second unhealthy way to deal with anger is to act out, either being verbally abusive or in extreme cases being aggressive, physically aggressive with our anger. And those are the two means normally that we've been taught how to deal with anger. And the overall feeling, I think, around anger is a bad thing. And the truth is, it's just an emotion, which is neutral. And it's really what we decide to do with anger, how we process our anger, that is either going to be positive or negative. So if we push it down, the likelihood is that it's going to come up at another time and explode, which I'm sure we've all experienced.
Exactly.
Or like I said, we're going to be aggressive, either verbally aggressive or physically aggressive, and those are the negative ways. The positive way to deal with anger is to be able to channel that energy to kind of understand what it is that the anger's trying to tell us, like what's underneath. And we say that anger is a mask, so it's not the primary emotion that we feel. Underneath our anger is something else that we have not taken the time to feel. And underneath that could be sadness, it could be embarrassment, it could be humiliation, it could be rejection, it could be feeling not worthy, not loved. There's a ton of things that could be underneath anger. And when we really take the time to feel what's underneath and are able to just feel it and process it, then we can understand what is our anger really trying to tell us. And then that's when we become empowered to be able to use that energy to focus on what it is that we truly need in our life.
Wow. So yeah, I think you're right. I hadn't thought about that before, but there really could be probably unlimited things underneath. You know, you just never do know. I'm thinking another one when you were listing those, I think another one maybe for me is feeling a lack of control over what's going on around me. That seems to be something that really bothers me. And my pattern in the past has always been, I don't want to express anger. I want to always express love. So I am one of those that like just squashes it. But yeah, you're right. It does build up. That's kind of why I laughed when you mentioned that. Do you, I'm wondering too, do you notice a pattern where maybe women are more prone to just, internalize it and not express it, and men are more prone to act out and be more aggressive? Is there something along those lines physiologically, I wonder?
I would say yes, that like just socially, anger for a woman is less acceptable than it is for a man, and which would tend to lead women to repress their anger more than men do. Men can be certainly more verbally aggressive, especially just amongst men, and it's more acceptable for men to vent than it is for women. Right.
Yeah, women are called not nice names if they express themselves too much.
Correct. I didn't want to use the word.
Exactly. Me either. So I was wondering, and I'm sure you have lots and lots of examples of client stories, but I was wondering about some kind the science or studies behind this. How did you get to the point where you are coaching people on how to deal with anger? Like where could someone go to learn these things?
So yeah, an anger management specialist like myself can certainly help with that. The science around it and the stress that it causes to the body is also a really super interesting topic, as it is in your summit. And so what happens from a scientific perspective is that the brain, when we start to feel angry, the brain releases neurotransmitters called catecholamines, which produce a number of different physiological changes in the body, including our heart rate increasing, our blood pressure increasing, which are obviously not great things, muscle tension in the body, rapid breathing. Our heart starts to pump instead of our normal 4 liters of blood per minute, it starts to pump at 20 liters per minute.
Oh, wow.
And then on top of that, once we really start to get into the anger, adrenaline and noradrenaline also get released into the body, which prepares us to fight, right? It starts to send that kind of energy to our limbs to either be able to flee a situation or fight a situation. It's the old amygdala part of the brain that gets activated, and gets us into reactionary mode. So
Gotcha.
that's where our emotions end up being can take us over, and that's the scientific part of what's going on in our body. The good news is that we have a prefrontal cortex, which is responsible for the judgment part of our it's the judgment part of the brain, which allows us to think logically, and so there's a way out, right? There's a way out of being into the reactionary amygdala part of the brain.
So I suppose I was, when you were describing that, I was wondering, is it fight or flight, that people are familiar with? But it sounds like you kind of escalate to that point. So the goal then might be to engage that higher brain before you get to that. So is that kind of what you coach people to be aware of and do?
100%. So we are definitely, when in anger, we're in fight or flight mode, which is not a bad thing, because during our day we are constantly switching from the relaxed part of the brain, from the parasympathetic to the sympathetic. We're always switching back and forth, but we don't want to remain in fight or flight, because even that has damaging impacts to our heart. With those chemicals that are getting released into our body, it has a damaging effect to our heart over time, and people with high anger issues can have heart issues. And so, what I teach is, first, just awareness, right? That's actually what's happening in our body, and we don't want the prolonged effects, because I'm sure there's even situations where you can remember where you were angry for hours and sometimes even days. And so when that's happening, all of those chemicals are still getting released into our body, which is causing harm to our body. And so it's so important to be able to switch from, being able to switch the story in our head of what's going on, so that our body can actually relax and get back out, get out of the fight or flight mode.
Right. So it definitely, besides the mental stress of being angry and having a confrontation with someone, which that in itself is very stressful, there's a real physiological stress to your body that lasts however long. I remember hearing an example one time. I've studied natural wellness for about 34 years now. When my second son was born, we had medical issues that, pushed me that way, where allopathic medicine just wasn't working. And so it's been about 34 years, but it was an example. The teacher said, you're in the woods and you see the bear and you're like, oh my gosh, there's a bear. And you run home and you're like, oh, that was terrible. I was so scared there was a bear. And and then you eventually just kind of calm down, and over the next few hours. And I think if I remember right, at that time, she said it took 72 hours to get the hormones balanced and completely back to the cortisol levels are correct. But these days, just daily life, like, people really don't have 72 hours to decompress, because there's stress all the time. And especially, I think, since the pandemic, and that's really part of why I'm doing this summit. I feel like I've just noticed that people different, and they feel isolated and alone and broken and disconnected. And I think they're angry. I think people do have a level of anger and stress. And so, that's why I love bringing this information. And I really hope that people hear something that they take to heart and, learn more and really empower themselves just to get back to joy and peace. So that's my purpose for it. Could you, do you have an example in mind of a certain story that you could share with us? I love hearing stories, success stories, of course, anonymously, but I think people enjoy hearing success stories.
Yeah, I think actually I'll talk just about a personal situation of mine, and how not to do something and how to do something.
Got plenty of this.
Yeah. So with my partner, when before I learned all these techniques, when we would fight, my way of being to be able to handle this was to flee the situation. So to stop talking and to escape and be silent. And there's a benefit in doing that. Like there's a benefit in, because for me personally, it would just help me to calm down and to reflect on whatever was going on. But for my partner, it was not so easy, because me fleeing the situation made her feel abandoned, or she felt abandoned. I shouldn't say made her feel, but she felt abandoned by me fleeing the situation, which ended up actually escalating the situation, right? Because now it's like, you don't want to talk about this, you don't want to solve the problem. And from my perspective, no, it's just I need time to go and process whatever's happening for me to understand what's going on with me. And so that would tend to escalate a situation. So I guess one of the tips I would have for people is, how do we communicate the need for a timeout in an argument so that it doesn't escalate? And so just noticing that we're in an argument and that we're getting angry is the point in time for us to say, you know what, we need a break here. We need a timeout. But it gets to be communicated in a way such that everyone understands that that's actually what's happening, and that we're not trying to dismiss somebody, or we're not trying to abandon someone. So the way I do it now is I say to my partner, you know what, I feel angry right now, and I don't want the situation to escalate, and I need whatever it is. I need a half an hour, I need an hour for me to just sit with whatever's going on with me, so that I can come back and assertively kind of and respectfully just request what it is I need from that situation.
Revisit it with a fresh perspective without the anger.
Right. And so that allows me to activate the prefrontal cortex part of my brain, get out of the amygdala, and then come back and have a rational, logical conversation about what's going on. And I actually get to come back to it with curiosity, because part of, understanding anger, and what we say is actually the antidote to anger, is empathy. So I may understand that my partner is also angry, and if I'm curious to know what's going on with her, I can come back to it with curiosity. So how, what was going on with you? Like, and what did you need in this situation? Because it's not all about me when we're having an argument, right? It's not all about what I need from the situation, but it's also being able to understand what's going on with my partner, so that I can connect with her on a whole different level.
Right. That's beautiful. My father is a psychiatrist who's practiced medicine 60 years, psychiatry 50 years.
Wow.
And he just retired a year and a half ago at 86. So, totally a passion for him. But he raised us with something along those lines called, you might be using the same term, but transactional analysis, where, I've got my perspective, you've got your perspective. The goal is not to win. The goal is to find the truth. And that's most often somewhere in the middle, and so it's just learning, like you said, those effective communication skills, becoming aware of what you're feeling and being able to verbalize it and detach the emotion. Like that's what he taught us, is, how to have the conversation, take a deep breath, reduce the emotion, look at what's really going on, and be able to communicate it. Most people aren't raised that way.
No, 100%. And I love what you say about winning. Like, it's not about winning an argument, right? Because if I win an argument, that means my partner lost.
Exactly.
And do I want my partner to lose in an argument?
No, that doesn't serve anything, right?
No.
Wow. I have a personal example also. And like I said, I'm one that tries to avoid conflict at all costs. So I don't find myself often, and especially being raised that way. So it's not often that I find myself like so angry, but there have been scenes where I can think of. And with me, and I guess maybe because it's so unusual, but with me, then like the next day, I feel beat up, like physically beat up. My body hurts like I got hit by a bus. So do you think that's connected to those like strong emotions that I'm not used to?
Definitely the chemicals that get released into our body and the tension that it causes, and the tension that anger causes can certainly make you can get you to feel that way. The other thing I'd like to say about, what I see as a common pattern of people who come to me with anger issues is it's not only like there's like a people pleasing that happens, like avoiding conflict is also part of people pleasing.
Yes.
And people pleasing to a degree is okay, but when it starts to get out of balance to the point where everyone else's needs matter more than your own, like this is kind of the common thing that I see, is that's what builds up the resentment and the anger in people. Is now my needs aren't not getting met, but really it's kind of an anger that comes towards the self rather than towards other people, because we get to understand that if I'm always helping other people or people pleasing, then it's not about them, right? It's really about my behavior and what's going on with me. And then my own resentment about, not getting my needs met start to build up. And I could blame others for it, which could typically happen. But in the end, you get to realize that it's really about me and how I'm not taking care of myself. And so part of what I also teach people in this is really, how do you get to take care of yourself, and how do you make sure that your own needs are met, so that the resentment's not building up and the anger is not getting externalized to other people, or we're not in a blame state.
Absolutely. I'm reminded of a phrase, the difference between being assertive and being aggressive. And so that's another fine line that people don't understand. So of course it's healthy to be assertive, in a loving way, but a lot of people don't understand, and they confuse the two. And if I'm going to stick up for myself, then it has to be, aggression. So it's really an interesting topic. I feel like we could talk a long time about it. Let me see. I had one question for you. I made a note up here. So you mentioned at the beginning about using the emotion of anger to our benefit. So actually, there we go. We're gonna put your title up there. How do you do that? I mean, so now we've become aware of, we're starting to feel that, and we know what we need to do as far as, taking the step back and all that. How do you take that anger energy then and use that for benefit?
Yeah, it's a great question. So what I like to say, we talked a little bit about it at the beginning, is that anger is a mask for whatever's going on underneath us. And so that's where the power is to really understand what's going on underneath the anger. What am I really feeling? What did I feel first? Did I feel, like I said, humiliated? Did I feel rejected? Did I feel not loved? And then it's a question of, okay, so now I get to really take the time to feel that, whatever that is, because that's really where the juice is, where the power is. And so when I really understand the emotion that's underneath it, and I allow myself to feel it and release it, then there's a part of me that heals there. And then the next step is to understand, okay, so if that's how I'm feeling, what do I need? And you mentioned that, that perhaps it was like you don't have control, and maybe somebody's trying to control you, right? And so there's an argument that starts to happen over control, and it's you wanting control. And so where, maybe not in that situation, maybe in another situation that it's reminding you of, like, that also needs to be healed. But it could be in that situation or another situation where you're seeking control and you don't have it. And so what are the steps that you can take now to empower yourself to get control over what it is that you really want control over? So there's just so many different things that it could be. Right. Like I said, it could be control, it could be rejection, it could be not loved. Like, and how can I love myself? How can So there's just so many places to go.
It's quite a process then, but awareness and then finding out what's underneath, and maybe being okay feeling that. Maybe people are afraid to admit and feel what's underneath. That could be very frightening.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. I'll have people that will come to me, and then it's like, oh wow, I didn't realize that that's what was underneath it, and I don't want to feel that. I'm stopping here,
Exactly.
and I don't want to
Exactly.
go any farther, which is also
So
okay. It's all part of the
that
process.
makes sense to me.
So when we say anger is a mask, it's a mask to not feel something
Mm,
that's underneath, right? It's a protection. Anger is often a
absolutely.
protection, and
I can
sometimes it's too big, and we have to feel it in chunks, right? It's like sometimes you have to go slower with some people to
mm-hmm.
get underneath and take your time to really process what's there, so that
Right.
it's not all one just big thing that's underneath there that's ready to explode.
Right.
So
I totally can understand that. Do you have specific action steps that we can leave listeners with, that will kind of, because it is a big topic and there's so much that you've shared and I love it and I wish we could talk more. But something like specific, just simple action steps that they can do at home, or like maybe just kind of talk themselves off the ledge when things do start to escalate. And
yeah,
maybe just do a practice, like maybe
yeah,
even tell themselves, I'm going to experiment with this and see, how I feel and how it helps my relationship or this or that. But
yeah.
what would you suggest? Just a simple step to leave people with.
Yeah, there's a number I could share. So the first thing you want to do is get yourself out of fight and flight, right?
Hmm.
And so that means change. It often means the timeout that I was talking about, and how to express the
Hmm.
timeout to your partner or whoever you're in a fight over
Right.
with. It's like that would be the first step.
Hmm.
Second step is how do you calm your body, and there's lots of different ways to do that. It could just be changing the scene, going for a walk in the forest. It could be listening to music that you like. It could be meditation. It could be breath work. So I teach a common breath work is to inhale for a count of 4 and then exhale for a count of 8. And that
Okay.
is really what switches our nervous system, and it
Hmm.
really helps us to calm our body. So those are really fantastic ones that you could try. Um, Exercise also is a great release of tension for the body, and mindset. Another one that we talk about is thought stopping. So you know how you could be rerunning the story in your mind,
Yes.
for
Yes.
hours of the fight that you just had. It's like you close your eyes and you say stop, and you envision a stop sign, and
Ah,
it's like you stop that process, because like I said before, in the beginning, like all of those chemicals are going on, and the more we rehash the story, the more we stay in the anger. So
mm,
stop. Thought stopping is also a great way to just like, okay, cut the story. Let's cut the story
right.
and
That's great.
switch. Yeah.
I love all of those. Very, very helpful. So I know I hate to bring it to an end, but tell us about, I think you said you have a gift for listeners. And so tell us a little bit about that and then where people can find you.
Yes. So I'm offering a 30-minute free call to anybody who wants to dive a little bit deeper into what's going on with them, or would like specifics around, getting to understand their anger and what's underneath.
That's
Um,
huge.
Happy to just hop on a call and support someone in that way. And yeah, I can be reached through my website, which is www.transformdeeply.ca.
Write that down.
Um,
And we'll have this in the replays for everybody. There we go. Transformdeeply.ca.
Perfect.
So yeah, but we'll have links, with the videos, we'll have links too for
Yeah,
people.
there'll be a Calendly link also in there
Oh,
for people
perfect.
to reach out as well, if they'd like to
I
reach
love
out to me
that.
that way.
That
That'd be
is
the
so
easiest way.
so generous of you. So thank you so much, Eric. This has been really enlightening, and I can think of a few people that I really would like to watch this.
Awesome. Well, thank you
I'll
so much.
say, including
Thank you
myself,
for
I'm not.
thank you for hosting
Thank
this.
you.
This is an amazing thing that you're doing. Thank you.
I'm so excited about it. We've got so many great people, and I really think it's going to have a great reach and help a lot of people. So, and I
Awesome.
honor you and your work that you're doing, and thank you again. You have a
Thank,
wonderful day.
thank you so much.
Bye bye.
Bye now.